In 1938, camels still carried the mail. He flew up in an open Spartan biplane to make a private survey of the country, hoping to find a piece of land to settle. During 3 months, Connellan covered 40,000 miles in an ancient plain without adequate landing grounds, no engineering assistance, and across some of the world's most arid countryside. After the epic flight, the then Minister for the Interior suggested that Connellan might organize an airmail service to remote settlements throughout the territory. Connellan accepted the challenge, and from 1939, he built up a service of regular scheduled flights in a country that boasted no airstrips and scorching temperatures for most of the year, which seriously affected airplanes of that period. Last year, over a service area equivalent to a sizable chunk of Europe, Connellan Airways flew 1.5 million miles between 120 remote settlements and towns. 300 miles west of Alice Springs, at Nawituma, Connellan also built up a cattle station of 1,070 square miles with 9,000 head of cattle, where once there was only a wilderness. Commuting by aircraft to Alice Springs to run the airline, Connellan, at 64, worked 7 days a week. Right from the beginning, Eddie Connellan believed that Australia couldn't hold on to the territory without an adequate population. In the early 40s, he wrote, "We need people up here. There's plenty of opportunity, wonderful cattle country, but there must be some of the amenities of life. Only aircraft can bring those amenities and maintain communications economically."
Okay, Christopher, check call, anything fresh?
With over 1,000 square miles to farm, Connellan keeps in touch with his family and his office by radio. The cattle station is a microcosm of the whole territory. Communications are vital for survival.
The Townies managed to get the grader, or do we just have to wait till they call us, over?
Connellan is well used to the isolation of the center, the never-never of space and endless time, the swagman's lunch of damper, and boiling up the billy. 40 years ago, he was doing exactly the same thing, but in a rather more elegant vehicle, surveying the desert in a Silver Ghost Rolls-Royce. In the early days, Connellan's aeroplanes created quite a stir, and a crowd gathered wherever there was a crowd to gather. But for most of the time, it was learning how to fly and land in aeroplanes designed for a more temperate climate.
Well, to get the airline started, I had, of course, already done all the necessary route surveys and made maps. For many years, all the pilots made their own maps. It was a required part of their training because the act of making the map taught you the country and helped you to remember landmarks, which you had to put on a piece of paper and describe, as well as positioning them. And we built the hangar ourselves, none of us being builders, and we built the aerodromes. We went out with the old Silver Ghost Rolls-Royce, which would go anywhere in the desert. We carried a dismantled Britstand grader in the back. We used a 200-foot cable to pull the trees out. We'd cut the roots around the trees and then drive off, get up to about 50 miles an hour at the end of the cable length, rip the tree out, keep going to take it off the aerodrome. And when the aerodrome site was cleared, we'd assemble the grader and we'd use the 1919 Silver Ghost as a tractor to pull the grader by slipping the clutch, because you had infinite gearing. It was an oil clutch and you could slip the clutch, and as long as you knew that when the blue smoke started coming out of the clutch housing, you had to stop and put some more oil in, it didn't do any harm at all. Well, during this period, we built 7 station aerodromes and 8 emergency aerodromes. The emergency aerodromes had 2 purposes. One was somewhere to land in the event of some sort of trouble, engine trouble or navigational trouble. Dust storms, for instance, were a great hazard in those days. Sometimes we had to go to places where there was no aerodrome. One stage we kept an ex-Air Force ambulance Tiger Moth for the purpose of doing this sort of thing. That's after World War II now that I'm talking about. And George Taylor, for instance, took the Tiger out on one occasion on a medical flight for a stockman who'd been thrown from his horse and badly injured, out bush, not near any aerodrome, and it was considered unsafe to move him, and he just landed in the bush right alongside of him, put him on the stretcher and brought him straight back in the Tiger.
The airline operated from this single hangar on the edge of town. But Alice Springs grew to engulf the aerodrome, and a new airport was built south of the MacDonnell Ranges. Connellan's airstrip became a runway for more mundane vehicles. The new aerodrome provided an opportunity to enlarge the whole operation and to build the most sophisticated aircraft workshops in the outback. The mail run by aircraft, the service that put Connellan